Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by Plentitude Inc. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Seif El-Sahly here with me today. And for those of you who don't know him, he is a real estate investor, visionary, and master renovator behind the pilot episode Tiny Homes Garage Edition. He's renovated more than 150 units since moving the Newfore office to Hamilton 3 years ago. He's a self-proclaimed workaholic, and when he's not at the office, he's on the hunt for abandoned real estate to turn into luxurious rentals in great neighborhoods. Armed with boundless creativity and unwavering passion, he breathes new life into these abandoned properties and transforms them into awe-inspiring dream homes. So thank you so much for your time today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So it sounds like you've obviously done a lot in the last few years, but maybe you can take us back to what life looked like before real estate came into the picture for you.
Before real estate came in the picture, what I used to do is I studied engineering. So I used to work in the larger projects, mining and metals. And
Okay.
then I did that for a few years. And after that, I became a consultant doing mostly design work.
Okay. And then what was the catalyst then? Like, how did you make that jump over to real estate? I know, changing industries is not always necessarily the easiest.
Yeah, it was a bit, obviously, everything is a bit of a risk. I had gotten to the point where I wanted to do a little bit more. I think the consulting side was a bit boring for me.
Yeah.
You do your 37 and a half hours a week, and then it's like there's so much free time. So I wanted to do a lot more. I wanted to be hands-on, more
Yeah.
involved, like more stressful, feel more productive.
Yeah.
So I started venturing out and doing a bunch of stuff on the side.
Yeah.
One of them was I bought my first rental property that needed a little bit of work.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got involved with that and bought a second one, needed a lot more work,
Yeah.
and was really involved with that one. And I just loved it. It kept going from there.
Yeah, I find that an interesting parallel because I feel like a lot of people think, they don't want the rat race. They don't want the grind of their jobs and their careers and stuff. So they go into real estate investing because they want that freedom, but then they end up finding themselves probably working more than they would have if they stayed in their job. Obviously, you sacrifice in the short term to reap those benefits in the long term. But I just found that an interesting parallel with your approach, that you wanted more work and you're kind of hungry for a bigger challenge. Now, I guess in terms of growing your portfolio, you obviously started with your first couple of rental properties. How did you shift to growing to the point of your portfolio now? And can you speak a little bit about what that looks like at this point?
Yes. So it's kind of one property at a time, right? So you do one, and then at some point, sooner or later, you stop, and then you think you're like, wow, we've done quite a bit of work so
Yeah.
far. But you really take it one property at a time. And
Yeah.
then when you're just in the industry all the time, you keep your eyes and ears open, and
Yeah.
you find that you tend to get pretty lucky, because if you're in the industry the entire time, odds are you're going to be there when the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
So you end up capitalizing on them.
So you're just typically going in and just buying and selling. You're not necessarily refinancing and growing the portfolio that way.
I've only sold one property ever. I always just refinance and hold on to
Okay.
it. But I believe more in like long-term value
Yeah.
and buy and holds and refinance. So I always
Yeah.
buy in A neighborhoods,
Yeah.
kind of, I would say the worst home in the best neighborhood. So
Yeah.
that
No,
you
that
can
makes
do some
sense.
forced appreciation, fix it up, get quality tenants, and then you get rid of that deferred maintenance line item. So
Yeah.
that way, when you're coming in and you're putting in new tenants, you have very minimal maintenance for the next like 5 to 10 years if the
Yeah.
place has already been fully gutted. So you reap the long-term rewards.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So what does your portfolio look like these days?
Right now, I have 11 units,
Yeah.
and they're all duplexes and triplexes and a few garden suites as well.
Nice. And can you speak? I know you've got your career with Newfore. So can you talk a little bit about that business and what you're doing with that?
So yeah, that Newfore, we're general contractors. We're based in Hamilton.
Yeah.
We do residential and commercial work. We do a big variety of projects. Some of the jobs are for homeowner end users that are looking to, could be add a second story, a rear
Yeah.
addition, got their home. Other projects we do are investment properties for investors,
Yeah.
residential investors, and that's duplex conversions, triplex, garden suites, and apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And then we also have our commercial side as well, where this is more where businesses bring us on board, typically do a full retrofit or redesign of the space.
Yeah.
And then other jobs we have are government jobs where we're doing public tenders for the city.
Oh, nice. So it is pretty diverse. And you're specifically like Hamilton and more South West Ontario?
Initially, yeah, the focus was only Hamilton, but
Yeah.
then since then we've grown. But naturally, we're in this area, so 80% of our business is in Hamilton.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So now you look back at your career in real estate, what would you say is probably your biggest success or something that you're most proud of?
I think it's that you focus on quality assets and building long-term real value,
Yeah.
not, buying something quickly for a cheap price and then, doing a quick turnover, make X number of dollars in this short
Yeah.
amount of time. I
Yeah.
think when you build true value and do forced appreciation, you really make out on top in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of that obviously had to do with timing. Like there are a lot of investors right now that are experiencing challenges because they brought properties high. They're planning to obviously burr them, sell higher, but then the market's going down and stuff like that. So I think obviously like in the last 10-ish years or even 15 years, a lot of investors have been on that trajectory up, but now we're experiencing a bit of a turnaround. So how do you think that will impact your strategy when it comes to real estate investing going forward?
Well, definitely. I bought quite a bit last year and the year before. So there's definitely losses there, but
Mm.
I wouldn't exactly say they're losses because they're losses today, but they're not something I'm looking to sell today anyway.
Yeah.
So if you hold on for 10 years, 5 years from today, if needed, I could do a refinance and you're definitely on top, even if you
Yeah.
average it out for those 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Now, in terms of obstacles, what would you say are some of the obstacles that you've faced and had to overcome as you've grown your portfolio and launched your business?
I would say probably the biggest question mark and gray area is the complexity of the work and the renovations.
Yeah,
When to stop renovating, that's a little bit hard to control yourself because
yeah,
when you're building a quality asset that's long term, you really want to do things right. It's very
yeah,
hard to turn a blind eye and say, okay, let's not do this, let's not do all this additional work
yeah,
on the subfloors before we put this brand new flooring because you're going to end up picking up the tab in a couple of years.
yeah, yeah.
So
No,
it's a
that
bit
makes
hard
sense.
to draw that line.
Now, have you engaged investors for any of your properties, or are you just doing this all pretty much on your own for your business?
Everything I've done is on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of people that find that to be like a difficult concept to consider, but obviously a lot of investors start with nothing and then they just
Yeah.
use investors' capital to be picking up properties or to do those renovations and stuff like that. So it's interesting just to hear what everybody's approach is and how it's different.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of lessons, like what would you say has been some of the lessons that you've learned? And if you could go back, is there anything that you would have done differently to maybe achieve a different outcome?
I would say if I were to do it differently at the very start, I would hire the right people for the right job and not be afraid to pay a bit of a premium. I'm not going
Yeah,
to say a massive premium. You don't have to hire, a custom home builder to build your legal basement,
yeah,
But I would definitely hire the professionals at a bit of a premium because there's a lot you can learn from them that you don't just see on a line item.
yeah,
Sometimes I find this is always the case with entry-level investors. They're always like, okay, this is going to cost X amount in labor, and I definitely can't get someone to do it. Or then it can cost a handyman this, plus this is the list that I need from Home Depot.
yeah,
Now let me go pick it up. And when you do that, you kind of rob yourself because you don't get to build that quality team that could have
yeah,
taken you to the next level. So yes, you might be losing up to 10% on that first project in terms of construction costs, but
yeah,
if you think about it in 10 years, just put an Excel sheet, put your
yeah,
appreciation in there, look at the total numbers. That 10% of the construction costs on day one is really nothing.
yeah.
So I would say I would have tried to become less short-sighted on day one.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. It's kind of like the quote when you talk about you're not necessarily paying for the job, you're paying for the years of experience. And
Yeah.
the person that, they might cost a little bit more, maybe they can do the job in half the time, and time is money. So it just depends on how you look at it. So that being said, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I've got Seif El-Sahly here. He has a company called Newfore Construction based out of Hamilton, and he's also been investing in real estate for the last several years. So he's sharing his experiences with us. I guess one thing I want to know is what's the craziest thing you'd say has happened to you so far as a business owner or as a real estate investor?
The craziest thing is we got so far ahead in a project, and then, we were sending out invoices and invoice, and then one investor ran out of money. So we were out kind of a few $100,000.
Yeah.
I would say that was probably one of the craziest things that's happened to me, and dealing with that has been a big challenge and a learning curve.
So how have you gone about dealing with that? Like as a, not to say you're a small business, but like any business, like that is a big hit to absorb.
Yeah, so obviously I had to hire the right professionals to give me the best advice, because at the end of the day, the good thing about real estate is there's always guarantee against the asset itself. The asset is worth something. You're not just doing something where you shipped some furniture over, some product or office supplies, and you don't really have an exact handle on something. So there's always a guarantee of the asset. But then managing that deficit for many years was a bit of a challenge as well.
Yeah, no, I can understand that completely. Now, when you look at things like advice and education, what would you say is some of the best advice that you've ever received?
I would say it's the same thing in the sense of that I mentioned prior, which is hiring the right people for the right job, because you're just able to move better as a unit. Not just in terms of the quality of the work, but also in terms of the speed. When you're an entry-level investor, I find that a lot of people overlook the holding costs and the operating costs of the property. So they're okay to let the project potentially slide by 2-3 months to save $1,000 or $2,000, which is kind of backwards. Just because you don't see it in a direct cost, there's no real bragging that comes with, hey, I got the construction done for X amount. It's really, was this project a success or not? How quick did it get done? And was everything predictable, on schedule or not? And then did you build a team out of, after that project, where you could take that exact same team and then replicate the project again, or potentially do it even better?
Now, is there anything that you've added to your due diligence process to understand like who is the best fit for you? Because obviously, like what I found is that quotes can really widely vary. I need to speak to having renovated an office. And at the time, I think the landlord gave us a leasehold improvement budget of 35,000. So we kind of use that as our benchmark. And like one quote was 25, one was 38, and then one was like 60 for the same work. And we're like, well, why would this be that much different, right? So just trying to understand that based on your experience, like what are the things that you're looking for that are most important?
When comparing quotes, you're asking.
We had quotes and just like evaluating who to work with and your team members.
I would say make sure when you're collecting quotes, don't go get, there's a bit of a stigma in the industry, go get three quotes. Yes, you need three quotes, but the very important part is you need three qualified quotes,
Yeah.
right? If you get a handyman to do an office rental, then he may not be familiar with certain building code requirements, and to him,
Mhm.
that's excluded from the quote.
Yeah.
But if you bring a commercial contractor, they may know that, okay, if you're putting up a partition wall, there's associated costs to do with that. For a
Yeah.
handyman, he's just framing and drywalling two sides. For a commercial contractor, they're running electrical. They're
Yeah.
probably adding a sprinkler head inside and then probably a duct as well. So
Yeah.
they know that. So you got to make sure that first off, all the quotes are qualified. So three qualified quotes. And then
Yeah.
I would say once you get a few that are within a pretty reasonable cost of each other,
Mhm.
make sure you visit their job sites. And don't just, look at the place, look at the employees that are there. Are they coming in with smiles on their face? Are they moving quickly? Are they dragging their feet? Are they
Yeah.
excited about being there? Because these things do make a difference. That
Yeah.
translates to reliability. You see
Yeah.
someone where everybody's all excited in the field and everybody's getting work done. Well, guess what's going to happen? When that person tells you they're going to be done next week, they're going to be done next week. The
Yeah.
guys that are dragging their feet aren't. It's unpredictable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can understand that. Do you ever get client references as well, or do you see a value in that?
Yes, as in clients referring us.
Mhm. Well, no,
Absolutely.
like when you're exploring a contractor or someone to work with, like, will you ask for references from their clients?
Well, we are the contractors, so we wouldn't really hire contractors. The only
Yeah. Well,
people
I
we
mean,
do
like your
hire
team
is
members and stuff like that.
okay, you're potentially subtrades. So if we're
Yeah.
hiring
Yeah.
subtrades, for example, we pay attention to things that are a lot more difficult. One, it's or a lot more different. Sorry, it's the personality and making sure that things are getting
Yeah.
along. So we pay attention. Once we hit a certain price point, we don't care about hiring the cheapest
Yeah.
subtrade. It's not about getting the cheapest.
Yeah.
Is this person reliable? Are they
Yeah.
going to show up on time? Let me see their job sites. Let me see
Yeah.
what their actual crew size looks like. And then we
Yeah.
have different criteria where we go through that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, when you look at kind of your journey as a real estate investor, is there any particular number in mind that you look at as your financial freedom number? So whether that's cash flow, number of doors, like, is there something to you that you'll really feel like, I've made it at this point?
I don't think so. I think it's always changing because it's like you set a number and then
Yeah.
you hit it and then you want more. Because
Yeah.
I find that driven people are always going after the sense of purpose. It's not, there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
number. After a
Yeah.
certain number, you're not gonna say, you know what, I've found my sense of purpose. You're
Yeah.
always gonna want to do more. And it's
Yeah.
kind of the gift and the curse. It's what makes you work a lot,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it also makes you never satisfied. So I don't
Yeah.
think I do have a current number, but I'm sure once I hit that, then it's going to go even higher as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it interesting just to hear what people say, because in some instances it's like 1,000 doors or a value of 50 million or whatever that is, right? So everyone has their own approach to things. So I always just find that really interesting. Now, how would you say real estate investing and being a business owner has changed your life in terms of opportunities and just lifestyle and things like that?
Yeah, well, it's obviously the flexibility is nice. You don't work less hours, but you're more flexible in terms of the hours.
Yeah.
If I don't have the absolutely crucial meetings tomorrow, I could say, okay, I'm not coming in. And I'm taking a flight and going somewhere warm for the weekend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of nice, but with that comes an enormous burden. So your personality has to be able to handle all that
Yeah.
stuff. If you're naturally a more timid person, for example, you don't like confrontation, things like that, that may not be the best route for you because you're just
Yeah.
going to have a hard time. But if your personality lines up with something like that, where all those things come natural,
Yeah.
then being a business owner and an entrepreneur is a great path for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the challenges that any business owner will face is that you're not necessarily off. When I had my own business for 18 years, like I can't think of any vacations where I wasn't still checking my emails. Like you
Yeah.
still have to pay people. We didn't have the system set up where it just completely ran itself. So even when we had a booking, we still have to like hit the submit button to approve
Mhm.
payroll and like send money, and you'll still kind of field certain things. Or if there's an issue, obviously it escalates to you as a business owner, right? So sometimes you can think that your day is going to go a certain way and things come up, right? So at the end of the
Yes.
day, you're always going to be responsible for it. But again, it
Mm.
it is that blessing and that curse. So you've got the flexibility and the freedom, but you're never just off. Like when my
Yeah.
employees went on vacation, like they're off, like their phones
Mm.
are off. You're not talking to them whatsoever, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's just understanding the pros that come along with the cons.
Yeah, that is true. When you're people always think that being a business owner, you'll have a bit more flexible of a schedule. You can do all this stuff now,
Yeah,
but you don't. You work so much more, and
yeah,
especially you work when other people get to rest, and
yeah,
you can't even. And even when you're resting, I would say 90% of the time your mind's not even turned off. So are you
yeah.
really resting?
Yeah. Yeah. I saw like a meme on that recently, and it's like most people and they're sleeping, and it's like an entrepreneur, and there's like a bubble of all the things going
Yeah.
through their head when they're laying on their pillow at night, right?
You
So,
know what? Last night I fell asleep. I thought I got a pretty good night's sleep, but then when I woke up in the morning, I realized I was dreaming. We have to hand over a building tomorrow, so it's the end of this week. We're
yeah,
carrying over the project, and I was in my dream thinking of deficiencies. Okay, what if this comes up, and what if
yeah,
that comes up? I'm not kidding. I didn't even think at the time that this was something weird. But then now
yeah.
that we're talking about it, it's like I don't think
No,
a
I'm the same
person
way.
that has a
Yeah.
business, would be
Yeah.
dreaming about things like that.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I mean, it's not like I would keep my phone on at night because it would just never stop going off. But I remember even we had an event, and we provided staffing all across the country. And at the time we had an event going on in Vancouver.
Mm.
And I think I checked my phone just to see the time at 2 in the morning. And I saw someone canceling for a 6 a.m. shift in Vancouver. And I was like, well, if I leave this to the morning, I probably won't get a hold of anyone because it's going to be so early. But if I message some people right now, it's 11 o'clock at night there, I'll probably be able to fill it. So I'm literally like squinting in 2 in the morning, and I got it covered, sent them the stuff, and went back to sleep. But it's like stuff like that. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that happens all the time, but when there's things going on, like you always have to just be attuned to like the things that can come up just so that you can deliver to your clients and you can meet and exceed their expectations.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And even as a real estate investor, that's an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
Dealing with a tenant's a full-time job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Expect
having a
the
kid.
unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah. So, in terms of your favorite quotes, obviously the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest. So,
Mhm.
what would you say is your favorite quote that motivates and inspires you?
I mean, I have one in my wallet. Look, I have one that I carry in my wallet, so it's right here.
Nice.
So it's a bit long, but it says nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. So basically, be persistent and be determined because that counts more than
Awesome.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And when challenges happen, you just got to keep going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave with the audience at all?
I think we covered a good amount. I mean, if the audience is looking to sort of get into real estate now,
Yeah.
we're at the end of 2023. It looks like we've kind of hit the peak in terms of where the interest rates are. And
Hmm.
I would say if anyone's entering the market, now would be an absolute fantastic time because it looks
Yeah.
like 2024 rates wise is going to stay fairly stable, if not slightly go down. So
Yeah.
it's like we're kind of at the end of the last stop. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
2024, it looks like things might start sort of recovering. Whether that recovery takes a year or 2 years, I don't exactly know. But
Yeah,
if
it could take
someone's
a
thinking
while,
of,
but I feel
you're
like
right.
there's a mentor I had that said, when everyone's on pause or running away, he's like, I'm going over and I'm going shopping. So you
Yeah,
just got to look at things a certain way, and you can never completely time the market. So you just have to do what works for you, but also identify the hidden opportunities, right?
yeah, that's true.
Okay. So thank you for being here today. If anyone wants to get in touch, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
We're really active on Instagram, so you could just look us up, Newfore Inc.,
Okay.
Newforeinc. And
Great.
you can also go to our website, newfore.com.
Great. So we'll include that in the show notes below. And of course, thank you for being here. For anyone that is watching and tuning in, please make sure that you follow along at Inspired to Invest podcast on social. And for anyone watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe below. And of course, above all else, make sure that you remember when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to Plenitude Inc. for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.